Hey guys, it's been a while since I've made a video since our last one. I looked fucking shitty in that one. I look a bit better. My hair's a bit better than before. That's because I got that shit cut. This part's a bit weird right now, but should be that much of a problem. Let me just play around with my hair real quick. Um, I actually have some good news. So I finally did get a job at a coffee place. Not that bad. I'm not really like doing a barista thing. I'm kind of like working on like the little food in the back because coffee houses have that. Coffee places, whatever you want to call them. That's been the good thing so far. I still don't have a driver's license, which I still feel very shitty about. I'm not too worried. I'm gonna go to basically the easiest DMV. I actually did some research on my own DMV and I found out that I went to basically the worst rated DMV in my state. I know, right? It had a 2.0, which is lower than all the other ones. So I'm going to basically just like a better one. And there's like two other locations. I don't want to give any names because I don't want to dox myself or anything. But they're like 30 minutes away and they're easier. And from people I spoke to who got their driver's licenses, some of them mentioned these locations, mainly one in particular. The other one wasn't mentioned as much, but I've seen, reviews saying the same thing as the other. It's kind of interchangeable. So yeah, that's pretty much good news. I got a job. I'm going to be filling out some more work for that, try to get consistent hours. Expecting to get money soon. Driver's license thing. I'm not practicing as much, but I think I have the hang of it. If that makes sense. Especially if I'm going to do the test in a small town, they're not going to give a shit. Now the bad news. May has been excruciatingly shit so far. Actually, this has been one of the worst months besides January or December in terms of being awful months. It's even rivaling August and July, like late July, which is very interesting. It feels so weird because like I'm always like this, and I should be looking downward. Sorry, I gotta fix my hair again. So my university, because I barely attended my own classes for this semester, I had basically all D's in my class, and that wasn't because I was stupid, except maybe for math. The problem was that I just barely attended classes, and grades are attached to attendance, I guess. Despite how good you can do on your assignments, because I was pretty good at it. I was pretty good. I was like, I would say like B tier, like B grade tier, not A, could be A, but somewhere there. And sometimes like a tiny bit, and C for like math. Despite that, I still got all D's, and then I got like some academic warning thing, but it's like a small thing, so it's like, well, if I just do good next semester, I should be good, I guess. There's retards with business degrees that graduate, so I'm sure I can. The problem I had was that, and to give some context, they gave us these cards. They gave us these cards that essentially work as ways to use like some type of like money to basically, it's like a credit card. It's like a debit card, credit card. Mainly, I found out later it's basically just a glorified credit card. Basically, you can use that to like buy shit at the university if you don't want to use your actual money. And the thing is, when I came to my university, I got a shit ton of money in scholarships and and just like nepotism from some of my family because they have college funds and shit like that. And I had a lot of money in that. So I was like, all right, cool. Hopefully, I can use a lot of that. I have so much abundance of that money. Hopefully I can, use that when using my card, right? That's what I assumed. And, I went, and I would buy useful stuff. I bought a good calculator. I bought, textbooks. I didn't get much, I bought some food when I, was really hungry and was kind of desperate. Remember this. Or just like, just eating food with like friends, that's like what you do in college because the whole point of being social. I found out that later on in May, because guess what? Remember the Canvas hack, so everything was all down. Emails were just down too for some reason. I don't know why. It seemed to crash my entire university. Apparently, I had a bill that was like overdue or whatever, and I checked, and it was like a shit ton of money. I think it was like $500 or something. And it was all for this like extra like fucking Jewish ass fucking extra like charges like taxes, Also, I should say greedy, but whatever. You get the point there with Jew and greedy. Fucking they just charged me for like all of it, and I was like, okay. And I like remember I was like, cool, I'm gonna go pay for it. While I'm paying for it, I'm like, wait a second. There's no option for me to use the money that I have gotten from fucking scholarships and all that. And keep in mind, scholarship money and all the money that like I got, it detailed that all that money would be used for basically everything, like room and board, textbooks, everything. Just like any service there at the university, yet I can't use that money for some reason just for those. Even though it would fit under the same category. And that fucking, that shocked me, and I had to pay a lot of money for that. I had my mom help me, thank God, but my dad, he was being such a fucking greedy asshole for no reason. And for context here, my mom makes like around $35K a year. She gets paid, she doesn't get paid as much, but despite that, and then okay, I need to format better. She gets paid a bit less. Then there's my dad, and my dad, oh god, my fucking dad. He he gets paid much more, like nearly, basically like 70K, to like even over that. So he's like somewhere like 80K because of his like his own fucking parents giving him money because they're about to die soon. Who also inherited a bunch of money from dead family members. That's how a lot of the family is. Despite that, even though he has so much money, keep that in mind, like abundances of money, he barely has food in his house. He is deliberately arrogant to not paying for cheaper things, even though it would benefit him if he cares so much about saving money. He never once wanted to help. He would barely help me with like paying shit for college, I guess. I mean, he'll be like, oh, but like my parents meant me for things. And I asked him like, hey, can you help me like pay some of like the bill? I'm free to pay most of the bill. He's like, oh no, I don't want to pay it because I don't have to actually, and I just don't want to because I'm being a fucking greedy fucking asshole, greedy Jew. Which is insane. My own mother, who has groceries everywhere in the house because she actually shops cheap and makes way less than him, was willing to give me around $250 to pay this shit off. Yet you can't even budge fucking $10 or like $50 or even $90. You can't even budge that much. And that's sad. That's fucking sad. So anyways, I had to deal with that bullshit. I'm paying it off, Hopefully with the job, I can just get the money back, which won't be that bad. Drivers, I'm still kind of like scared about that still because I feel like in the thing with driving is that every single time I fail the test, I kind of see myself for who I actually am. Just a fuck up, I just see myself as a fuck up every single time I fail. because it's like I can't do anything right, you know? I drive as perfectly as I can because this fucking, and this is the stupidest thing about speed infractions. They'd be like, "Oh, you're speeding," but you went one mile, like 1 mile per hour or 2 miles per hour, a tiny bit above, right? But that's apparently so bad or illegal, like that, like anyone can tell the difference between that. You can't. Most normal people can't. Most normal people aren't following that shit. And even though the test is trying to make sure you're like perfect at everything, it's like it should be based on fucking common sense of like how people actually fucking drive, or what's like normal. You know, you have to be such a fucking like miserable faggot to like genuinely care that much about somebody going like 1 mile per hour a bit over, like 36 on 35. Like, oh my god, that's so bad. Or going 34 on 35. Like no one cares. Like no one fucking cares. But they care so much. And I think the worst thing ever was that like my last test, you know, they were talking about speeding or whatever, you know, whatever. But they mentioned it like as an infraction. I was like, all right, cool. But they docked me for not like for having the right of way to like turn over to like the thing, right? Like imagine I'm here and I go over here, and there was a car over there, and I was allowed to go, but I wanted that car to go because the drivers here in my state are notoriously bad at driving, really bad at driving. So you can't really trust people with their driving, you know. And I was trying to rely on caution, on safety, but apparently that's bad. Come on, I wasn't causing any infractions. I wasn't like making traffic or anything. There was barely even anyone there. It was just me and that dude over there. Yet I failed just because of that. And God, I forgot to mention this at the beginning when I was like reversing out. I almost, you know, hit a car on accident, right? And and the thing is, I never got docked for that. I never failed for that. Which, you know, realistically, if you're taking the test and you're the fucking test administrator, you would fail that person immediately. But instead, no, I'm gonna fail a person for like exercising actual safety and caution when there should be. And, you know, it makes total sense why in my fucking city everyone's a fucking retarded driver all the time. It's because it's all these like testers that work at this DMV are awful at their job. They're awful at trying to quote unquote make things safer on the road, because they aren't making things safer on the road. They're just being pedantic douchebags. You know, that's my rant on that. You know, that's like the first time I've really thought about the DMV in like a while. But no, May's been awful. You know, and I'll explain some other things in May soon. But I'll say that in the next video. This will be for just general shit in May.